in-game reveal?
How do you know it's a he?
Science rest.
Well, apparently James said it was a he. He knows. You know, I think that it's going to be far better and far more exciting to meet the Emperor in the game. That's my personal opinion.
Will we know who the character is?
Will you know who the character is once you meet the character in game?
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're doing there. Yeah, I'm not answering that.
Okay,
but it's a good question.
Okay, regarding pre-mission dialogue, one of the early videos showed that one choice directly influenced the course of a mission, in which you had a choice to either despair or something shouldn't happen, you know, and depending on what you did, it changed the mission. What percentage of the pre-mission dialogue, or even during the mission, because I went out and I went halfway, or whatever percentage throughout 5, how much dialogue actually changes the course of a mission? What percentage of the mission?
Right, so the question is, how many of your dialogue choices when you're playing a multiplayer adventure are going to change what happens in the mission? You know, what kind of enemies you might face, what sort of challenges you might have to overcome. And what I'll say is, we're always looking for ways to maximize player choice and to make players feel like they have the most control over the narrative and over the gameplay, and to set their own challenge levels in some cases. But it's really about you know, granting the storytelling power to you guys. You know, we sort of build the puzzle pieces, and then you get to assemble them, and you get to decide what that puzzle looks like. Anybody want to add to that?
By the way, one follow-up to that is, I can see where it'd be a nice sort of region in which you're playing somebody who's constantly making light side choices, but the guy in your party keeps making dark side choices and changing your mission. What are you doing? Even though it's not something you wanted, it's something that comes flowing naturally from the story, you know? You're with this person, you don't know, but he plays kind of, you know, that personality conflict is actually adding to the story rather than subtracting.
Sounds to me like he needs another friend.
Well, I just want to remind everyone that even when you're in a situation where you're making a choice, we're going to honor what you wanted to do, even if your friends outvote you. If you wanted to be the nice guy and spare his life, you're going to get your lifetime points, even if all your friends outvote you and kill him. We're still going to honor your choice. We don't want to punish you for maybe grouping with people who do want to do what you were doing. So
that's the good news. Now here's the other news, which is the family, the relatives of that captain you killed, they don't care what was in your... You could be like, no, I don't really want to care. I know, I didn't want to do that. And they don't care. They're going to try and shoot at you anyway. What would you say, like, related to the earlier question about switching from, like, a single player to a multiplayer ongoing thing, but, like, what is it challenging to, like, be writing for a persistent experience and not have it be, like, you killed this smuggler king, but he's back 5 minutes later, like, making the player feel like they've made a difference in the galaxy and all that? Well, first of all, we don't write like that. You know, it's not, it isn't the WoW experience where you've got the line of people out in public space waiting to kill that same NPC over and over again. We don't do that. No, it's cool. But it's a good question, and it's kind of a common misconception about writing for MMOs. The reality is, we find lots of clever ways to make sure that the choices you make, if you choose to kill a guy, he's dead. You know, that's forever. That persists throughout the narrative. So, you know, that's going to be your experience of the game. It's like, I got to that guy and I killed him, you know, and he's still dead, you know, and I go back and I talk to his relatives and they're like, woo-hoo-hoo, you know, sort of thing, and no, it's forever.
What if you party up with someone who wants to go beat that guy up?
You get that over there. To follow up on what Hall just said, too, one of the illusions I think you'll have is that the entirety of the Old Republic takes place in one moment, and that it's just a frozen instant in time. Actually, time takes place in the as you progress through the Old Republic and level up, things are changing in your story and in the overall story. So, you know, I will say what he just said. The idea is that, you know, you killed that smuggler king, you know, he was in a flashpoint where you killed him, you know, he's dead. That's your story. You know, you're not going to run into him in public space, so to speak, but you're not going to see him when you go to Ordnance Hill. Right.
that guy out to look really badass. Now, with that being said, it made me wonder if, like, depending on the choices you make, if you'll be able to see, like, unique situations where either you get to kick the guy off the ledge, or maybe, I don't know, shake a baby or something like that. You know, so, like, is that been, like, thought in, like, well, like, story choices?
Yeah, can you repeat the question one time?
Question cinematics, right?
This is only from a cinematic perspective. So, like, the story choices you make, like, there's a cinematic action that your character will perform.
Is there some cool action in the cinematics depending on the choices you make?
Absolutely.
There we go.
There's tons of cool things that happen in cinematic space, and that you can only get to by making a particular choice. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, there's guys working really hard to make key, emotional, and cool moments look as amazing and unique as possible. And there's some stuff in the Warrior story that I didn't think they would be able to do. I never thought they'd achieve. I wrote it, and my God, I hope when they did it. It's really amazing.
Yeah, one of the cool things as writers, I think, is when you're writing all this on paper and getting these ideas, you're like, well, wouldn't it be cool if all this could happen? And a lot of that stuff, when we first started writing it, was like, well, maybe we'll get to pull this off, we might have to come back and rewrite it. Well, once the team of cinematic designers got in there, it was like, we're going to do all that and then some. In fact, we want to, how about if you add this to the story, because we can make this killer scene where you shake the baby. And it's been amazing, like, it's amazing to play through those conversations and see how differently they play out cinematically, and, like, some of the cool stuff that goes on.
Our cinematics team is absolute top-notch. I'm consistently blown away by what they produce for us. And, you know, they'll come to me and say, so I have this idea that we put this thing, and they describe this incredible thing, and they get to the end of it, would that be okay? And I'm like, yeah, okay, that'd be fine.
Yeah, and I would add too, if you've seen the cinematics from Mass Effect, I mean, I think that is the top level, and because of our, you know, the necessity of being on an MMO engine, we might not reach that level all the time, but it's a lot of those same guys who work on our cinematics, and they've definitely, they're in that ballpark.
So you're saying you might get to punch a reporter in the face?
Yeah.
What, just one? No, it's, yeah.
So, recently, came out with the guild system, and so I was wondering, is there going to be anything for guilds, kind of like, I guess, WoW has some kind of guild achievement kind of thing? Is there any way that there will be a guild story or some kind of an aggregate
Guild story.
that tells the story of your guild or anything like that?
We can neither confirm nor deny that question. Yeah, to answer that question. I will say that's something that was discussed. It's a really awesome idea. You know, implementing that would be pretty challenging, but it's not impossible. You know,
Nothing is ever off the table.
Anything else?
This was, I'm not going to directly ask if there are going to be guild ships. I do want to know, you know, what you guys think about, you know, game for guild members to congregate.
He's asking, what do we think about a place where guild members can congregate?
Well, we actually answered that earlier today, the developer Q&A. Yeah, it's definitely something we like. A lot of the senior designers are big fans of housing, including our, I believe Daniel was, right? Daniel was talking about that. It's a big challenge and something we want to do right. So it's most likely not going to happen at launch, but it's always something we're considering because we know a ton of people want it. But as they mentioned, housing in this case will equal ships.
Yeah, you on your starship, you're going to have all your companions, excuse me, you guys have probably seen some of the videos, like, your companions are all hanging on your ship, and it's not the same as guild members, but it's very much like that experience of having a place where you live and things are going on there.
Freeloaders.
How do you guys keep everything organized?
Lots and lots of documentation.
No, what Hall said was right. Lots of documentation, lots of breaking things down into details, lots of communication, really. I mean, because you can write 80 different documents, but, you know, it is no comparison to actually getting up and going over to Hall and saying, hey, Hall, what happened since such and such part of, you know.
Well, that's a good one.
That's what he says every time.
Pretty much. It's always long.
But yeah, communication, lots of documentation, and it can be challenging with a game this size, but yeah, we those two are key.
There's always somebody who knows the answer.
And you see how organized we are here, right? I think we're pretty organized.
So earlier you mentioned how the Old Republic doesn't necessarily take place in one single moment. Sorry. Earlier you mentioned that the Old Republic doesn't take place in one single moment in time for your character. Does that mean that if one of your friends starts up the game and you've got a max level character, is he in a different phase, is he in a different moment of time, and can you still interact with them?
So the answer to that one is, for your story and your experience, like in terms of your story, that's what's evolving. And then you're gonna go into new areas where new things are going on that level 1 character is not going to be able to go into. You'll still be able to go back and go and participate in his story, but you're not in your story anymore, you're in his. That's kind of the way it is. So it's not necessarily that you're always in different phases and all that stuff. It's just that really, like in terms of the story and as you experience it, you see the galaxy changing. And once you get to the higher levels, you're in a different place. You can still go back. It's like going back in time, sort of.
I think the only thing I'll add to that is that there's an idea of, it's not necessarily about going back and experiencing the same old thing, it's about going forward. You're always moving forward, right? You're moving forward through space and time. So think about it that way.
Alright, we got time for one more question.
I'm pretty sure this is a question you've been asking, but I've never gotten a solid answer on it. What happens if you're a Republic character and you constantly make dark side choices, or on the reverse side, if you're in the Empire and you keep on aggregating light side choices, like you're a Sith Inquisitor, and you keep on choosing light side options? Is there, at some point, do they have to flip to the other side?
Right, so what you're asking about is, do you change factions? If you're constantly making light side choices or dark side choices, are you going to change your faction? No, you're not going to change your faction. Your faction stays the same, because ultimately, the context in which you are making those choices is, are you a servant of the Republic or the Empire? Or are you just in for yourself, like smugglers and bounty hunters kind of thing? So the idea here is, you can be a light-sided Sith. That doesn't mean you want to run off and join the Jedi. In fact, that might be a terrible idea, because the Jedi are probably going to try and kill you. But at least talk you to death. But the idea here is, you're trying to reform the Empire from within. If you're making light-side choices in the Empire, you're trying to create your vision for the Empire, a more just Empire, perhaps. And with the Republic, if you're making dark side choices, you're going the Anakin route. You're telling people, well, we should just make the people understand. We should tell the people what they're going to do, because that's more efficient than this idiot democracy that we have. It's a little bit like Paragon Ranch.
I do want to add, though, if you are a light side Sith or a dark side Jedi or what have you, you are usually in the minority of your faction, and people are going to start to notice and comment on the decision you've been making. So it does have an impact, definitely.
You will start to gain a reputation. Dear Jedi, please stop running missions not wearing pants.
Alright, and with that, we're out of time. I want to thank the writers. Give them a